shown by the first responders and private citizens of the greater Houston area as we deal with the effects of Hurricane Harvey. The decision to make the increased control releases was difficult, but necessary, one that we did not take lightly. We made them quicker than we would have preferred because the attic's pool rose faster overnight than we had forecast. This condition exhausted the reservoir's storage capacity and threatened the structure's basic functionality. The gates on the Barker Reservoir were opened slower, and we determined that we needed to halt further increases to observe both structures before determining if it was appropriate to increase releases to the full discharge. The Corps consulted with engineering experts from all over the country and throughout this process to assist in making these decisions. The Attucks and Barker watersheds have received 32 to 35 inches of rainfall across the watersheds since the beginning of this event. Releases from both reservoirs began 2 days ago. The 7-day accumulation assumed for this forecast is less than 1 inch of rainfall. Currently, Attucks is releasing approximately 7,500 cubic feet per second, or CFS, and Barker is releasing approximately 6,300 CFS. Flows around the north end of Attucks began yesterday morning. Due to the increased releases from the dam yesterday and less rain falling than was forecasted, Attucks is expected to peak today before the auxiliary spillways are activated. The Barker Reservoir pool is not expected to flank the ends of the dam. Our goal still remains to reach an 8,000 CFS discharge rate for each reservoir. As of 6 a.m. this morning, the pool elevation at Attucks is approximately 109.1 feet, which is up from 108.9 feet last night. It is still projected to peak at about 109.1 feet. The pool elevation currently at Barker is at approximately 101.6 feet, which is up from 101.4 feet, reading last night. It is projected to peak at about 101.3 feet. With the current releases, coupled with the weather forecast, both reservoirs should peak soon. Flows around the north end of Attucks is minimal at approximately 1/2 inch or 100 CFS. We do not anticipate water going around Barker Dam. Our goal is still to reach release rates of 8,000 CFS at both Attucks and Barker for a combined discharge down Buffalo Bayou of 16,000 CFS. We anticipate the dams will approach this target combined discharge rate in the coming days. Over the next few days, we will continue to monitor the Attucks and Barker dams. We plan to begin aerial reconnaissance later today to begin assessing the impacted areas around the Houston Metroplex. We will also begin assessments of the overall coastal Texas area and begin the process of clearing navigation channels so that the Coast Guard can officially open them up for traffic. We're working through the issues in collaboration with the U.S. Geological Survey with several gauges that have become inoperable during this extreme event in an effort to keep you all informed of the latest weather impacts. The Corps of Engineers has divisions and districts enterprise-wide that are actively involved in Hurricane Harvey response with the Galveston District. We have over 100 personnel that are located on the ground or en route for this response along the Texas coast as we make preparation for our recovery efforts. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Jeff Linder with the Harris County Flood Control District. I'm going to talk about the impacts we are seeing in the reservoirs and the impacts that are occurring along Buffalo Bayou. So at this time, overnight, as the releases have continued from Attucks and Barker, Buffalo Bayou between Highway 6 and Derry Ashford has risen. It will rise just a little bit more this morning, and then it is going to hold steady. For the section of the bayou between Derry Ashford and San Felipe, including Beltway 8 area, the bayou is forecast to rise an additional 1 to possibly 3 feet. However, the crest of the bayou at West Belt on Saturday and Sunday was 67.5 feet, and the expected crest with this additional rise of 1 to 3 feet is 64.5. So while some homes might have drained from the peak on Sunday, some of them may re-flood, but we do not expect additional homes to flood that had not already flooded on Saturday and Sunday. Downstream of San Felipe to the Houston Ship Channel, which includes the West Loop and downtown Houston, the channel continues to fall. Capacity is being built back within the channel, and as the upstream flows and the releases move downstream, we expect very minimal rise, if any at all. What may happen is the channel may just level out and stay steady. In the upstream sections of the reservoirs and the pools, as the Corps has mentioned, the pools are nearing their peaks, lower than forecasted, which is good. However, we still have inundation of the homes, structures, and subdivisions that line the western portion of both Addicks and Barker. We are estimating, with the current elevation in Barker, that roughly 1,000 homes have inundation, and in Addicks, roughly 3,000 homes have inundation. Some of the lowest homes currently have anywhere from 3 to 6 feet of water. As we've mentioned before, those areas will remain inundated for an extended period of time, as the pool will slowly rise to peak, stabilize, and then slowly begin to fall. There is better news for those that live along the north end of the Addicks Dam spillway. Consistently over the last 24 hours, the forecasts have been for less and less flow to go over the spillway. A small amount of flow continues to go over the spillway at this time, near Tanner Road and Eldridge, and Tanner Road and Ginger Ponds. We no longer expect significant amounts of flow to move down uncontrolled to Buffalo Bayou. The feeling is that since this is a marginal amount of water coming over the spillway, that most of it should probably be able to be absorbed into the underground drainage systems in storage areas between where it is pouring out near Eldridge and Tanner over to the Beltway and possibly a little bit south of there. So that's good news. As for the rest of the county, we have good news also. We have crested on nearly all the watersheds. This includes the West Fork and East Fork of the San Jacinto River, Lake Houston, and the main stem of the San Jacinto River below Lake Houston. Also Cedar Bayou, Cypress Creek, Clear Creek, Hunting Bayou, Greens Bayou, and Spring Creek. So the watersheds are falling, and while most of them remain well over their banks, and some of them remain in record levels, the water levels are going down. And that's for the first time in several days. In some areas of the county, especially the south central part of the county, Brays Bayou, Sims Bayou, Pasadena, those areas, waters have returned within the banks of the channel, and no additional flooding is expected in those areas. And I want to be clear that the water that is being released out of Addicks and Barker reservoirs only impacts Buffalo Bayou. It does not impact any other watershed in this county. And with that, there's one other thing. We want to continue with the mandatory evacuation of the Inverness Forest subdivision until 6 p.m. this evening. Overnight, there was a section of the ground near the levee that did have some seepage. And we are working right now with a contractor and the subdivision to determine if that seepage is from the pressure against the levee or something else that's going on. So we're watching this very closely. This is exactly why we have wanted to maintain that evacuation order for that subdivision.
Where is the subdivision again?
This is the Inverness Forest subdivision. This is west of Hardy, Toll Road, north of FM 1960. We feel confident that the integrity of the levee is still in good shape, and we're working to see what solutions there are today to mitigate the situation out there. The good news is that the water level in Cypress Creek is dropping, and so that will begin to relieve the pressure against that levee. But we do want to keep people out of there right now in case something does go wrong. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Jeff, I know it's still a little early in things, but for these homes that were built on the wetlands that are flooded, and I know this process is early, is there talk about if these homes are now uninhabitable, if they're going to be rebuilt, if they'll be moved away from the wetlands to prevent this from happening?
Yeah. So the question was, what is the potential for the homes that were inundated deeply, I guess, on the west side of Addicks and Barker to be, are they still livable? It's early in where we're at with this. So some of those homes will be inundated for several weeks. And after several weeks, residents will be able to get back into that area. The closest comparison that I can draw to those homes, and we've seen this other places, is Hurricane Katrina. When water sits in a house for several weeks, the house begins to degrade. And so we're not sure what the condition of those homes are going to be when residents return in a few weeks. As far as the question goes of will these homes be allowed to be rebuilt, or will they be rebuilt, that's a question that will have to be looked at going forward.
So you said that pressure on the levee. What's the concern? I mean, could it break? What would happen? Would there be extensive flooding? What would happen?
So the question is, due to the pressure on the levee, what could happen at Inverness Forest? Right now, there's crews out there and contractors trying to determine why this section has sloughed off and where the water is potentially coming from. There's two potential reasons. One is that the creek water has found a way through the levee. That seems like the least likely of the options. The second is that the pump system that takes water out of the subdivision and pumps it back over the levee to drain them might have somehow caused some of this. And so that's what they're looking at right now. At the moment, we feel that the first reason there, the water getting through the levee from the creek, is not the reason. If that were the reason, we would be much more concerned that the levee could breach. We have been checking for boils on the other side of the levee, because if water is moving through the levee, the sand has to go somewhere else. And so you start to see the sand boiling up from the ground. We have not seen that. So that's why we feel the integrity of the levee is still in good shape. But as a precaution, until we fully understand what is going on, we want people to maintain that evacuation area.
Is there currently flooding in the Inverness Forest subdivision?
The question was, is there currently flooding in the subdivision? The answer is no, there is not.
Jeff, I understand that you have a home in the affected area. How do you feel about things going for you?
The question was that I have a home in the affected area. I'm in the portion of the spillway area on Addicks and Barker. You know, I've been watching it just like everybody else. And so we'll continue to see what happens out there. I'm hopeful that with the lower peak elevations in the reservoir and less water spilling over the spillway, that area will not experience as much flooding as was expected earlier yesterday. And we'll just have to continue to see. We're going to have crews out there today assessing where that water is going to see how it's reacting as it interacts with those subdivisions and those structures. So.
Why the western side of Addicks and Barker? Why was that the side that got hit? Just rainfall?
So the question is, why are the homes on the western side of Addicks and Barker the ones that are being impacted? The reservoir lands rise to the west. So as you get closest to the dam, it's the lowest, or kind of like a bowl. And the lands rise in a sloping fashion toward the west. Homes have been built along the limit of the government-owned land just to the west of that. And so the homes closest to the government-owned land are the lowest, and then they slope upward as you go further west. And as the pool of the reservoir has risen, those homes closest to the border of the reservoir have taken on the water. And as the pool rises, additional homes will take on water. The good news is we are getting very close to the peak in both reservoirs, and so we're only talking about another couple tenths of a foot in both reservoirs. And so if the water is not in your home in those areas now, the likelihood is it probably won't get in your home. So that's good news. If it's very close, if it's this close, it could still get in your home. But compared to what we were looking at a couple days ago, we're looking at a significantly better situation for these reservoirs, not reaching those forecasted heights. And that has to do with the controlling of the water going into and being released out of that the Corps has been doing. It's called the water management of these reservoirs.
Did it get to a point where they were uncontrolled releases too yesterday, or were they all controlled?
Sure. The northern spillway of Addicks is considered an uncontrolled release, but it's a design feature of the dam for extreme precipitation events, which we're seeing right now at a minimal flow around the dam.
Anything else? All right, we will brief again at 7:30 this evening. Thank you.